myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past.
Good evening and welcome to NUFC Matters. Sorry we're late. It's all down to Liam this time, not me. I think people are probably expecting to walk in some grand costume after last week's Hawaii 5-0 episode.
No, but what I've done is I was actually in the lockdown barbers today, not the Joe Linton style, but I let my missus have a little trim at the sides and the back, so I think I'm looking a bit cleaner. Looking a bit cleaner today.
See, I don't have that problem.
My hands are covered in paint. That's the reason why we're 5 minutes late, by the way. Is I didn't want. I've been painting the hallway, and I didn't want the cats walking through and have these little paw prints all over the place. So, apologies, everybody out there. I know you're waiting. I know you've been waiting on this all week.
Fair enough, mate. You've got a pass from me, mate. Okay, loads of questions, mate. Over 300 waiting for the show, mate. So that's great. You know you're just going to be hammered for the next hour with questions. I did promise Jonathan Bell, who can't watch the show live, I'd ask his first. He inboxed us on Twitter. He says, gents, a question for tonight, if I may. There was a bit of chat before the weekend that a change in formation might come. Is this tactical switch the work of Jones or Bruce? Could the international break have given Jones the chance to get a new plan in place, or do you think Bruce should get the credit, Liam?
Really good question, and I think it's something that we've talked about a lot on this programme, and it's something that I really did want to address today. I think there's a very, very simple answer to it, and it goes, you just got to look at Steve Bruce's previous quote where he says, tactics aren't his thing, it's all about players. So I think any tactical tweaks and changes that we're seeing in the system and the way Newcastle play at the moment are all down to Jones. Effectively, that's the way I see it. I know he's basically taking the team for much of the week, with Steve Bruce still selecting the personnel. But look, let's look at it and say it worked. They did formulate a plan. They needed to be pragmatic with not having the players back to play in the system, and they've done that. It's taken them too long. I wish they could have done that later. Much earlier. I wish they could have done that with a couple of games ago, just to see that we could get another result, because we know that 5 works. We know that this team are quite comfortable in the 5. Look, the personnel in the 5 at the back wasn't right. We know Miguel Almiron can play that midfield role where he breaks. He played it a little bit under Benitez, and he's actually played it one of his decent spells under Bruce. I can't remember when, it may have been last season, but he has played that role before and looks good doing it. And Joe Linton looked really good with a bit of support. It's amazing. I know I've been not want to get rid of the identity, and once you find it, but it's amazing what you can do when you play 2 players up front and give opposition defenders who looked shaky as hell, to be honest, give them something to think about. And it might not work again at Burnley. They could play the same team and it might be totally different. But I liked the fact, and I'm more positive about the fact, there seemed to be a little bit of thought process behind it. There was a bit of pragmatism where they would change a system to make it work for them, rather than stick to a system for the sake of it. But really good question. In short, I'm putting a lot of the credit down to both men. Team selections, Steve Bruce, because that's my understanding that he still selects the personnel that go out come kick-off time, and then system and sort of adjustments in that realm I'm putting down to Graham Jones. And look, I've criticised Steve Bruce a lot on that, but he did get certain selections right. He got the Emil Kraft selection very, very wrong. But beyond that, the rest of the selections were pretty good.
Got his substitutions right. That's all that matters. Got us the point we needed. An unexpected point from a lot of the prediction shows I've been watching, and from the show that we did yesterday. A great show yesterday, by the way, with Chris, with Pete, with Holly, and with Alicia, giving us their predictions for the last 8 fixtures of the season. Give it a watch. They also talk about Fulham's games. Over 2,000 views on that one already. Give it a watch. It's in the playlist. It was last night's show. Well worth a watch. Dave Harrison, sorry you can't be with us tonight either. He's having a rough old time. He's had he's a regular in the chat, as everybody knows. Our thoughts are with Dave. He's had a few personal issues. And he did ask a question today. He said, Steve, hope you're well. I may not be able to watch the show live tonight, but if you're able to ask Liam how many of our players does he think would be better under a better coach? I mean, it's a question we've been asked before. Are there players in that team you think would respond to somebody different to Steve Bruce? Do you think there's life in some of these players that maybe we're not seeing at the moment under Steve Bruce? Kraft, you mentioned already. Would he be any better if Rafa Benitez was coaching him?
Good question. Hope you're well. Thanks for getting in touch, and I'll try and answer it best I can. I would imagine that every single one of the players in Newcastle United squad, from bad, good, indifferent, out of form, in form, whoever it may be, would all be better players under a better coach, and under a better coaching system. They would all be better. There are certain players that I think were much better under a better coach, because we have got that direct comparison that we can make between Benitez and his coaching staff and Bruce and his coaching staff. And I think the ones that are obvious, stick out like a sore thumb, are the likes of Sean Longstaff. Really sticks out like a sore thumb. There are others. Paul Dummett was massively improving under Benitez. I'm trying to think of other players. I'll be honest.
Fabian Shaw was good under Rafa, but hasn't done as well under Bruce, has he?
Another one, yeah, Shaw. One who I would say is actually probably gone the other way, and I don't think there are many. The one that I think's gone the other way is probably Javier Manquillo. He hasn't had a great season this season. He's had a lot of injuries, been in and out, even when he has played. Particularly, he was poor at the start of the season. But I would argue he's actually a better player under Bruce than he probably was under Benitez. But there aren't many others. But I look at players like, for example, Joe Linton, who obviously we know the story. Everybody knows the story behind the Joe Linton signing. But I think it's hard to argue that he wouldn't be a better footballer if he'd been coached better week in, week out. I think he would. And Sean Longstaff's the other one that I look at. I think people have got to start seeing it as they see it. I think it's a cheap narrative to criticise players. I put my ratings out. I was at the game on Sunday. I put my ratings out, and people were still critical of Sean Longstaff. I thought he had a great game, to be honest. It was a big improvement on Jeff Hendrick, who we thought would come in. A big improvement on Isaac Hayden in that that slightly wide of centre midfielder. Much improved than Isaac Hayden had been in that position. Because he's comfortable on the ball, he's confident on the ball, he moves it well, he gets about the pitch, he's got talent. I just wish, like as the question said, I wish he could have been coached, because that's what these young players need. They're almost, Matty Longstaff is just totally going, he's not stagnating, it's the wrong thing, he's going backwards. I have the same fears for Elliot Anderson if he isn't sort of pushed in the right directions. He hasn't been so far. It could have been a great time to go out and get him some minutes, some senior football, a first loan, make some mistakes, maybe pick up an injury, do some recovery, just learn to be a footballer at senior level. I think there's something can be said about that. There were offers. Maybe the championship was too high, but he's a talented boy. And there are players there. I don't buy into this really, really tired idea that this area doesn't produce quality footballers anymore. It does produce quality footballers. It really does, and it can produce a lot more. Newcastle's academy really has probably outdone itself. It's probably produced more players than the effort from the top of the club's been put into it in the last 15 years. It's actually should have produced none. Shouldn't have got any transfer fees and no first team players, but it has produced a few, and that's almost been in spite of the people who run the football club. And dictate the kind of finances that go into the academy. But yeah, I think there's a lot of players in that squad I think every single one of them would be a better player, probably with better coaching. I think that goes without saying.
Yeah, okay, we've got lots of questions, Liam. We're not going to get through them all. I'll try and cherry pick some of the best ones and different ones. Yeah, you've gone into some kind of solar eclipse kind of coverage tonight. I didn't really want to see it. I thought you were doing some kind of photo shoot or something. Okay, right. Tom Dixon says, James Pelota has speculation he's interested in launching a bid for Newcastle United. Thoughts on this? I mean, again, I saw the story. I read it. I was late reading it. I saw there was a little bit of a spat between a couple of people online about it. The Chronicle ran with the story. My understanding was he's mentioned the club in passing. Mark Douglas said today on Twitter that he was led to believe that they'd done some due diligence on the club and that there is interest in Newcastle. But that's as far as it's gone. And again, the narrative we've pushed on this channel since day one has been that there is only one bid at the table still, although it's been withdrawn at this moment in time. We know that arbitration's either starting or started, whatever's happening there, we don't know, but we know that arbitration's next. But ultimately, the PIF and PCP and the Rubens is the only one that Mike Ashley's interested in as well.
Yeah, that you've effectively summed it up there, Steve. I know there has been a lot of talk about a lot of stuff. It's not the first time he's mentioned Newcastle United. He is somebody who wants to come back into football. That original article comes from The Athletic, where he's talking about his sort of 10 years at Roma, the developments there, and he does name check Newcastle United in that. Look, I don't see a negative in it. What there shouldn't be a fuss about very rich men wanting to come and buy our football club. He couldn't buy it by himself. He would need investment. But I think we always roll back to the very simple idea that Newcastle United, if it is sold in the short term, will only be to one buyer, and that's the PCP put together consortium. Mm-hmm. That's it. They're the people who will buy this football club if it goes short term, unless it collapses. And somebody is ready, waiting in the wings to say, okay, Mike, no matter what division you're in, he has the money that you want. Then I could see it going very quickly again. But yeah, I think it's all hypotheticals because there is only one buyer. You only want to sell to one buyer. So there you are.
Yeah, it is. As I say, I wouldn't read too much into that, Tom. Tom, I'll give you this second question. I do want to try and get other people, but he says, will Callum Wilson be available for Burnley on Sunday? Is it a yes or is it a no? Or they're treating him with kid gloves?
There's a bit of that, Steve. Cheers, Tom, for the question. Yeah, I think he will be available. Simple. I actually thought he was going to be available last Sunday. I did say that on here, but I think they've been particularly careful with him. And look, I think they would have won the game if he'd played. And I'm confident going in the Burnley game. I think if they can perform and show even the remotest sense of consistency and perform to 80% of what they did against Tottenham, I think they'll beat Burnley. The least they'll do is not get beat themselves. So it's a tough place to go. It's always a tough place to go. They're a horrible team to play in a lot of ways, Burnley. But I think if Newcastle United perform like that with Callum Wilson back, with another week fitter Alan St Maximin, I didn't think he looked the sharpest when he come on. He did have a couple of moments, particularly for the goal and within a couple of seconds of coming on. But I think with another week under both of those two players' belts, I think Newcastle United have got a good chance. But they've just got to keep that consistency.
Yep, consistency is the key. Paul Hepplewhite, I've sorted my ear out 2.5 weeks later. Today, that's me ear unblocked today. Christ, what a nightmare that has been. An absolute Tony Blair, especially when you're doing this every night of the week. And you're struggling to hear at the best of times. But yeah, my ear sorted. Paul Hepplewhite, he says, anyone got a cure for gout? He reckons it's too many fried Mars bars. So if anyone's got a cure for gout, I'm sure there'll be somebody out there will do. Stick it in the chat for Paul. I'm sure he will be very grateful. Nick, good evening, mate. Nick's great. He sorted out that aviation prize for the food bank, if you remember. Evening, lads. What do you both think of Nick DeMarco's tweet with the brown ale? Was it a hidden message or was it just a Sunday beer? Yes. Another subliminal communication from Nick DeMarco, Liam. It was an interesting one, to say the least, a bottle of Brune.
It was. I don't blame him. I don't blame him for having that.
Yeah.
Apologies there. I don't blame him for having a beer on a Sunday, Easter Sunday, but I don't think there's a hidden message behind it. He has a lot of interactions on Twitter with Newcastle United fans, and I think it is just a nod to that. He is working for the football club and doing a lot of that at the moment. So, yeah, I wouldn't read too much into it. I think it's a nice nod to Newcastle United fans.
Okay, Zubair Khan and others are asking about the Trust's big news. Obviously, if you're a member of the Supporters Trust, you will have had an email by now, I would imagine. Obviously, you're not really allowed to say anything, if you know, because it's embargoed, I suppose, until their release date. But it certainly caused a bit of a shudder through the fan base, a bit of excitement through the fan base, especially on social media. People think it's been linked to the Trust and the takeover and stuff like that. I mean, we can't say too much, Liam. I'm not sure you know 100% what it is. I certainly do. I have spoken to the Trust about it. There's not a great deal we can say, is there?
No, I've had conversations None this week, but I've had conversations recently, so I've got a pretty good idea as to what it is going to be. I don't know if there's been any kind of developments in the last few days, but I think it's something that Newcastle United fans can get behind if they fancy it. It's something. It could be a unifying thing in a time where there is so much divisive things going on, particularly on social media. So I would just keep an eye out for it. I'm not going to steal anybody's thunder, so they can announce it.
We can't. I just laugh when you said United fan base. I think we're as far away from that as possible at the moment for a variety of reasons. It has to be said, but I think it'll be interesting to say the least. I think when they do announce it, I think timing for something like this is important. Look, the fan base will decide. It's up to the fan base, and I've spoken to the guys. I wish them all the best with it. Let's see what happens. Pete Davey says, "Evening, Steve, Liam. Question for Liam: with Bruce saying he's not walking away, do you feel he wants to keep us up with a view to walking away in the summer? I'm starting to believe this is the plan."
Cheers, Pete. Honestly, I think it's all hypothetical. It's impossible to know, really. I don't believe he wants to walk away. I don't believe he wants to walk away in the summer. I think he wants to stay at the football club, and I think he might. Because I think you'd like to think he's probably. You hope they've got enough to keep them up this season, and I think he will definitely stay if he does keep them up. But then we're in the realms of do takeover developments start taking over the landscape on Tyneside, and there is a possibility that then opens up. I think until the point where Newcastle United are safe, I think it's almost all that kind of things on the back burner. I think if Mike Ashley remains at the football club in 12 months' time and Newcastle United are still in the Premier League, it would be no shock to me to see that Steve Bruce would still be Newcastle United manager.
Okay. Terry, good evening, mate. He says, a question for Liam. Under the current regime, our best players will want out in the summer. ASM, Miggy, etc. I don't get why pressure is not being put on resale or why we're not seeing that pressure. What's your thoughts on that?
Pressure from, I would ask, I don't know if you can come up, pressure from who? Do you mean there's no pressure on the sale of the football club, or do you mean sale of players? Or I think it's fair to say that certain players will probably want out of Newcastle United and will want better themselves, because let's be realistic about the situation. Newcastle United are fighting relegation.
He's talking the takeover. It's the way that he's worded it. I think he means regarding sale. So why pressure not being put on regarding sale, or why are we not seeing that pressure? He's talking about the takeover, isn't he?
Yeah, well, look, the takeover is at a very delicate legal point at the moment. I think all the pressure that could have been and has been applied has been. I think it first came from fans, it came from other directions as well, and it's even come from the legal teams themselves. We've seen that play out with certain parts of this arbitration process being made into the public domain. I think that was due to certain pressures being applied. Look, I think it'll happen when it happens. If it happens, that's always been my stance on it. I think it's impossible to know about timeframes. In everybody's book, I don't think anybody wants to see this come through the score all the way through the summer. But it looks like it's going to be that way, because look, it's an unsaleable asset largely at the moment, not knowing with so many variables, not knowing where the football club's going to be, how much it'll be worth, etc., etc. So I think ultimately everybody's focus at the moment is just purely got to be on, can Newcastle United stay up? I did a while back. I mean, I've written a couple of really sort of slaughter pieces effectively on Steve Bruce in recent weeks, but in the back of my mind, I've always said on here, and I've always known that he would remain. He would remain until there was a change at the top, and it's always felt a little bit futile, really sort of throwing the kitchen sink at Steve Bruce, because nothing comes back, and you're not really going to get the decision that you want, unfortunately. He's going to remain. So I think we'll just have to wait and see how it plays out. That could be my only answer on that one, to be honest. It's just impossible. There's too many variables at the moment to know what's going to happen. And the pressure that's been put on has already been applied. It is at a delicate moment, and I don't think we'll have to wait forever, but it wouldn't surprise us if we have to wait at the end of the season.
Michael Kelly says, hi lads, is it true that Steve Bruce has moved back to Manchester full time and he's travelling to the training ground from there to avoid fans?
I don't think there'll be to avoid fans, Michael. There aren't really any around. I do believe that he does spends some time in Newcastle, but also spends a lot of time at the family home back in the northwest. And I think he does. I think that's probably why some of the days off are scheduled the way they are, etc. But I'm not sure that he travels every single day.
Yeah, okay. Question there from Colin. He says, Liam, last week you said Wilson was fit and available. To be fair, most people did. What happened? Do you think they've given him an extra week's recuperation?
No, nothing happened, Colin. Appreciate you for calling us out on that one. I was of the belief, a lot of the information that I got was that Wilson was ahead of Alan St. Maximin. It then became quite obvious around Wednesday. It was about Thursday that it was the opposite way around. Way things go. I think if Newcastle had a game, my opinion is if they had a game tomorrow, he'd probably play Wilson, or he'd be involved at least on the bench. I think it was just a case of it was probably that sort of right on the edge, 7 to 8 weeks since he did the injury, and it was a case of does he play, does he not? I think they've just given him that extra week, and there hasn't been any setback. I wouldn't worry about that, or not one to my knowledge anyway.
No, I think keeping him for the Burnley game was the right thing to do as well. Do you know what I mean? You give it. ESM's had a little bit of time under his belt as well, but keeping Wilson for the important games, the games where you think that's where we can get 3 points. I think that really is the key. Paul Ashmore says, "Hi guys, NUFC are planning an announcement we spoke about a little bit earlier. According to Twitter, do you think it's takeover related?" Paul, I'm not going to betray any confidences on this, but it's not takeover related. I don't think that's really affecting anybody. I think the trust should be coming out and saying it's not takeover related, because ultimately it's got the fan base in meltdown over it. So it's not takeover related. I don't think I'm betraying any confidences. If I am, tough. But I don't think I am with that answer. Twister Man, Liam, is it fair to say Bruce is an absent manager? If so, it's an astonishing admission of coaching failure. How can he justify having no tactical nous, yet feel he can select the team? Interesting.
It is. It's such a strange situation that we find ourselves in. And in a lot of ways, when you evaluate, and only time will tell, if in the summer Newcastle United stay up, it'll be fine. It was probably the right decision, and enough to keep them up, just to put that stick and plaster of Graham Jones into the side, just to give them that extra boost. If Newcastle United go down, I think there'll be a totally different reflection on the Graham Jones decision. I think it'll be a case of too many cooks. They should have just sacked the manager, and it prolonged the agony. And having two people who players have to answer to, two direct people. There's a number of coaches there, but it's the two direct people that people have to answer to. One picks the team, one sorts the coaching. It doesn't always marry together, because somebody may want to pick certain players in certain positions that don't fit. It doesn't always marry together. I mean, that's my understanding of it. There's never been an official explanation as to the real roles of the two, apart from assistant and head coach, of course. But yeah, I think we're going to have to wait until the summer to see if it was the right call. I believe in some ways it may well have prolonged the agony. At a normal football club, Steve Bruce would have been sacked anyway. But I do believe that he probably has had that stay of execution because of the coaching change.
Yeah, Roger Cook says, Liam, given how Burnley play, will that dictate another big change in the formation because it worked against Spurs?
It's hard to know, isn't it? I think that formation probably could still work against Burnley. It's got to be horses for courses. I'm not a tactical analyst. I'm not going to sit here and pretend I know the ins and outs of exactly how Burnley play. We all know how they play. They're quite direct, big, hard from set pieces. They're quite a hard team to play against. I don't see why that can't work against Burnley. I mean, my idea would be changes I would make is I would love to see Kieran Clark brought back into the team for Emil Kraft. I know it's on the other side, but I wouldn't put any fears in moving him across because he's a proper defender and he'll be in the right place at the right time. Even better would be seeing somebody like Fede Fernandez back fit, because he's the best defender at the football club. There seem to be some issues with that, so we'll wait and see. But I think that would be one of the key changes that I would make. Apart from that, I think the team worked reasonably well. If Callum Wilson is fit to start the football match, then he's another one that comes in. And some people may like and may not like this, but in my opinion, he comes in for Dwight Gale. Plain and simple. I think Joe Linton, I say it as I see, and everyone here watches this, they know that I'm not a Joe Linton fan in any way, shape or form. But I would argue in 3 of the last 4 games, apart from Brighton, where everybody was atrocious. 3 of the last 4 games, he's been in the top 3 Newcastle United players in every single one of those games. And he was man of the match for me on Sunday for his performance. He's got his faults. We know he's got his faults. But I think at the moment on that performance and the way he's performed in the 3 out of the last 4 games, I think he keeps his place in the team.
Yeah, okay, we'll go with Zubair's question as well. Just about arbitration, it's the word on everyone's lips because, of course, we know that, once arbitration reaches its conclusion, then, we're going to have another step closer to the answer of what's going to happen with this takeover. But when does arbitration hearing start, or is it a case we could hear a decision at any time now? I guess it's the same answer that we've said each week, isn't it, Liam? We're just all going to have to wait and see because nobody knows.
Look, and it's really frustrating for everybody out there, but confidentiality really does mean confidentiality this time. We've seen leaks left, right and centre from every single side over the course of this past 12, 13 months, however long it's been since all the news broke. It's really tight-lipped at the moment, and I haven't got a problem with that. Look, I'm a reporter. I want to hear news. I want to break stories. As a fan, I want to know what's going on, but ultimately... it'll work its way through. There is a legal process that will be followed, and it'll happen when it happens. And if we don't find out about it and leaks don't happen, that's actually a good thing. That's actually a really positive thing that these leaks aren't coming out at crucial times. I've heard rumours, some from good sources, some from not so good sources, that things are moving on. You hear these things all the time. You're going to just have to trust the process. And we'll wait and see where it takes us.
Trust the process. Good way of that. It's a new one. That's your 2021 instead of join the dots. Trust the process. Trust the process. TTP. Yeah, well, we can come up with something with that. I'm sure Q-Tech will do a T-shirt. I've got to give these a shout out. I've been very neglectful at this. Once these T-shirts have gone, they've gone. NUFCmatters.com. John from Q-Tech spent a lot of time making the website up. He's made some cracking tops, some T-shirts, etc. But these are only going to be available until May. So if you want one, get them now. There's going to be a brand new design for next season, which will please you lot because you know that I'm planning on being here for next season. But yeah, all these T-shirts, NUFCmatters.com. You can get a phone holder, the lot. This is John's business. This is what John does. Even a car window sticker to stick in your car. I think it needs to have cult on there, to be perfectly honest, John, to make it more, to make it stand out, shall we say. And John doesn't mess around with T-shirts. He's even created this one to wind people up, I'm sure. Steve Wraith is God T-shirt, NUFC Matters, which he's just sent us today. And honestly, I just want to thank everybody in the chat for the support. I'm glad we can all laugh about it. I've seen some horrendous things the last couple of days, and some more again on other channels. I really don't get what they're on about. I'm really sorry to say. If I've offended anybody, I apologise. I don't know what I've done wrong. But look, at the end of the day, people are entitled to their opinions. I'll just continue to do my good work on this show. I love working on this show with everybody who participates and everybody who wants to participate. It's a bit of fun. It's been set up, I've said this over the last 12 months, just to get everyone through lockdown, and that's what we do. I think Tuesday nights, one of the best shows, one of the most, it's like the Three Amigos. It's 650 people watching it at the minute. It's just a thoroughly enjoyable show to do. Me and Liam sitting having a bit crack and a bit banter, answering your questions if we can. Same as the Three Amigos. Those two shows, these two shows will probably stay because they're enjoyable, and it's a chance for me to catch up. But thanks for all your support in the chat. Thanks for everyone's support on social media. It's been a tough week. I won't deny it, but I'm fine. I am going to go on Josh Banyard's show as well. I must give that a plug. He does a show. I know he does the Cockney Down South. I think that's one of his shows. But he does the mental health stuff, game changer stuff. I'm going to go on his show this week. So my relationship is still good with some people. I just don't like criticism when it's basically abusive criticism, and I've had a lot of that over the last week on Twitter, and that's why I've blocked people. It's as simple as that, and I just wanted to get that out there. Whilst I've got a big audience tonight, watching the show,
Steve, they're only supportive in the chat because they got through the cult initiation. That's the only reason they're supportive.
I can't believe people are calling this a cult. I mean, I understand if it's not an L, it's an N. Fair enough, I can accept that. I've been called worse than that in the years on the door, but calling us a cult, I mean, it's just ridiculous. It really is. But look, listen, when you do these things, you're there to be shot at, and that's the way it goes. But I just want to thank everybody out there for your support. It's great. We've got a great show, we've got a great platform. We'll continue to do it. And there's no robots on this platform. They're all genuine subscribers, and thank you for that. We're closing in this week on 39,000 subscribers. That is mental. Really, it really is mental. Really do appreciate it. Big shout out to the sponsors who have stuck by us as well, because they all enjoy what we're doing. Spider VPN, third month in a row, they've been our main sponsor. Big shout out to them. Big shout out to Graham as well at Geordie Riffs. Premium guitar lessons for beginners and children, guitar repairs and service and recording studio. geordieriffs.co.uk is the website. Follow them on Instagram at Geordie Riffs, and Geordie Riffs Official on the Facebook. Already given them a plug, but I'll plug them again. qtechshop.co.uk for the makers of pool tables and snooker tables, and all of our merchandise at nufcmatters.com. And a big shout out to John, who does all the flyers. And if you are a first time visitor, hit the Newcastle Legends badge in the bottom right hand corner. All you do is subscribe to the channel. It's free. There's no emails or anything like that. You'll get a notification on YouTube when we go live. Hit a reminder for your favourite shows as well. Just a reminder to do that. Hit a reminder and you'll not miss the favourite shows. And hit the like button, which is the little thumb, just to give us a bit of support. Hit the share button. Share it to your other social media. And drop into the chat, because everybody in the chat's a good laugh. Some really nice people on there. And when we're not getting spammed occasionally by trolls or other channels, then it's usually great fun. So a lot of great people, a lot of people who are on every night of the week, and we value their support. Big shout out to everybody in the chat. You really, really are appreciated. Alan Thompson says, if Joe Linton scores the goal that keeps us in the Premier League, has he then justified his transfer fee, Liam?
Actually, it's a really good question, Alan. Over the course of his time at Newcastle United, of course he hasn't. But if he scored a crucial goal, the only goal that kept Newcastle United in the division, you could massively argue that he had, because that would be worth a lot more than £40 million to Newcastle United. It could even be worth a whole lot more in the Newcastle United fan base with a potential takeover down the avenue. So, yes, Alan, actually, if he does score the goal that keeps Newcastle United up, you could argue that he's more than paid back his £40 million. But that doesn't mean he's been good, of course, over the whole story. But yeah, really good question, Alan.
Yeah, great question. Great question indeed. Colin Wilson asked another belter. He says, Steve, Liam, how can we expect anything from our fringe players when they don't get enough game time? Stagnating is an understatement. I mean, there's a lot of players who could fall into that category.
I think the one that really sticks in my mind was Sean Longstaff to this point. Matty Longstaff is the one that he's been, like it's mentioned there, he reportedly has been fantastic in training, really sticking in. He was only on the bench because Ryan Fraser, Andy Carroll, Fede Fernandez had to pull out. I would say the same Elliot Anderson, and I'd be very surprised if any of those are back. That those will be the ones that drop off the bench. It's a real shame. When called upon this season, Matty's done really well, and I'm pretty sure when called upon, Elliot Anderson would do really well as well.
Okay. RE says, is Emil Kraft the worst fullback in our Premier League history? Good question.
It is a good question, and I think you'd have to argue that he probably is, yeah. I think he's been absolutely... Look, it's hard. I don't think it's a lack of effort. I don't think it's a lack of trying. I just think the lad is so ill-equipped to play in the Premier League. He looks ill-equipped to play in League One, never mind the Championship. He's got no pace. He's never in the right position. He's got no quality in terms of delivery going forward. You could forgive that if he was a good defender, but he doesn't do either. We'll forgive Yedlin a lot of his faults because he was really good going forward. There's been other players like that. Jethro Willems was fantastic going forward, couldn't really defend much, and is lauded by Newcastle United fans for that 6 months that he had. I think you can forgive a player if he's got something. I just think Newcastle United fans are really struggling to find anything that Emil Kraft does well. Like I say, he doesn't defend. He's even been slotted into centre half, and he was the big weak link on Sunday. He was an absolute bomb scare every time the ball was anywhere near him. created the first goal for Tottenham, the equaliser, straight after the Newcastle players were running back to the halfway line screaming, right, let's get to half time. Stick at it, lads. Emil Kraft just gives a goal straight away. But that's what you're playing with, and I think he's the one player, if Newcastle want to go and get a result, they've got to make sure they take Emil Kraft out the side, I think, on Sunday. Okay,
Keith Patterson says, Steve, what's happening with the cult? I thought NCSL was the cult and you and Liam just a pair of cults. Cheers, Keith. Alan says, Fulham fans think they'll get 40 points. How many points do you think we'll get, Liam? It was interesting last night because Pete came up with 13 points, which would take us to 42. The girls both, it was Alicia and Chris both had 11 points, and Chris Hall had us on 12 points. So how many points do you think Newcastle will get?
I don't think they'll get that many, but I don't think Fulham will either. What I'm working on, my idea is, so Fulham have played 31 games this season and they've got 26 points. So let's work on the idea that Fulham go a point per game. So let's say they more than improve on what they've done so far this season, which is likely in the final weeks of the season when there's something to play for, lives on the line, etc. So let's say they get a point per game. They get seven points from their last 7 games. That takes them to 33 points. I suspect, give or take a few points, that's probably around where Fulham will finish. I can't predict this. I'm not Mystic Meg, you know what I mean? But I'm just guessing using simple logic that I think if they pick up a point per game, they'll be doing reasonably well. And that only takes them to 33 points. And sorry about sounding a bit like Steve Bruce, if Newcastle United in their final games pick up the same amount, then they're well past that. They're well past they're 37 points and they stay up and won't even be a conversation on the final day of the season, more than likely. I think there'll be twists and turns in the road. I don't think they'll be as straightforward as that. But if Fulham get more than 35 points, that's another 9 points from the final 7 games. I think they'll be doing really well. And I think Newcastle United are probably just going to have to. I think 2 wins probably keeps Newcastle United up. 2 wins out the last 8 games. It could be the case that 1 win and a handful of draws keeps you up as well. I think a handful, just a couple of 2 or 3 draws as well keeps you up. I don't think anybody will be getting, not Newcastle or Fulham. I'd be very, very surprised if either team breaks 40 points. And I just don't see where Newcastle United are getting double-figure points from. I think 2 wins would probably be enough, because 2 wins takes you to 35 points. Like I say, I think Fulham will be doing well. That would be 9 points from the last 7. I think they'll be doing well to get to 35 points. But like I say, give or take, I think Fulham will finish between 33 and 36 points, depending on having a good indifferent end of the season. If they have a bad end of the season, which is also possible, if they continue in their current form, they'll probably finish the season with 31 points or something like that. Newcastle United are almost there. We can't rely on that, of course, and we need to get wins on the board because it is still very, very tight. But I think Newcastle will probably pick up. I think they'll definitely win. I think they'll definitely win another game, and I think they'll definitely pick up a few draws along the way. But I think they'll probably finish with about 8 points. I think they'll win a couple and draw a couple. That's what I think they'll probably. That would take Newcastle to 37, and I think Fulham will probably end up somewhere in the region of 33, 34 points. But like I say, you never predict.
No, you can't. B. Taylor says, do you think it's pure coincidence that Nick DeMarco and Mirdad both tweeted at the same time of the weekend, or is something positive coming soon? Yeah, a lot of social media activity from people connected with the takeover. Was it a coincidence?
I thought it was really good to see the human side of somebody who wants to buy our football club in Mirdad. I think you could tell he was kicking every ball on Sunday with the rest of Newcastle United fan base. By nature, he's not a Newcastle United fan, but he wants to buy into this football club. He believes in this football club, as does his wife Amanda Staley and the Reuben brothers and PIF to a large extent as well. And I think it was really good. It was nice to see that personal side. I don't know what you thought, Steve, because
it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. Look, it's clear, that there is a human side to them, but those people who are keen on buying Newcastle United are showing an interest, not just in buying the football club. They're showing showing an interest in the results. Do you know what I mean? And that in itself is really interesting. And I don't think that's leading the fans up a garden path. I think it's showing their intentions are good. In whatever way they can. Peter Smart says, by objecting to the QC being biased, does that help in highlighting and forcing to give us a fairer crack at the whip? He's of course talking about arbitration.
Peter, I think you almost hit the nail on the head there, really, because all it's done is just shone a light on the people who are going to essentially make the decision in this process. It's made their names public. Their names were out there, but it's made them real public. Everybody knows who they are, and that brings a level of accountability with it. It's much harder to make a dodgy decision when everybody knows who you are and exactly what you're doing. Not that I think for 1 second people at that level in the legal profession would make a dodgy decision, but you just never know. And I think they've done the right thing. They've played a canny game in making sure that they got certain parts of this process put out in the public domain. It allowed fans to know exactly where things stand. And again, like you said there, it shines a light on them and makes sure that even if they had any thoughts that they would not be straight with their decision making and not accountable, this adds a level of accountability that every man in these dog, not just Newcastle United fans, know exactly who these people are making the decisions.
Yeah, okay, good question here from Aaron. He says, is Manquillo still recovering, or does Bruce dislike him as well? Personally, I believe he's our most balanced fullback and think Murphy's our best as an attacker. Confusing seeing him on the bench for weeks. Yeah, I mean, it's all down to opinions, but I would agree. Manquillo, is just he's been put out to grass, hasn't he, really?
I agree, Aaron. I think Manquillo is probably the best all-round fullback. He can play right back, he can play left back. He's a decent enough defender. He's a little bit of a confidence player at times. He does let his head drop in certain games when things are going particularly bad. But he's a good attacker as well. He's quick. He's got a lot of decent attributes. But I'm not going to criticise Steve Bruce for making the change that he did personnel-wise. Jacob Murphy was an absolute inspired choice. He was absolutely tremendous. And me and Steve, you have had a little to and fro about Matt Ritchie over the months.
Yeah, we have.
And you know what? I'll eat me hat because he was tremendous on Sunday. What he brought was a different kind of energy that this team lacks. It's the fiery, committed. There was just a different aura about him in that team, and I thought it was another absolutely inspired decision to bring him back in at left wing back. Long may it continue.
Yeah, thanks for all your supportive messages in the chat. Steve Wraith, the 21st century Charlie Manson. I think that's a classic, Dicko. It falls in with the true crime section as well that we do, so I like that. Zubair says, can Fulham win their next games? That's a big question. My worry is Mitro's hit some serious form. He had a good week in International Week, didn't he? But he got back. He was, I don't know. He got a goal at the weekend, but Mitro's not a top class act, is he? And I think we'll be fine.
I wouldn't look if Newcastle United were relying on Alexander Mitrovic to fire the goals to keep them in this division. I'd be seriously concerned. I think people, if you think of that, you've got a relatively short memory because he's not a Premier League striker and not a consistent enough performer in the Premier League. He does well at international level. It's one of those anomalies. They play the way he wants, the way it suits him. But he didn't score goals for Newcastle United largely in the Premier League apart from his first season. Didn't score goals for Newcastle United. He couldn't even get in the team most of the time and didn't deserve to be either in the Championship season. And gone to Fulham, done really well in the Championship, come to the Premier League and can't really always get in their side. They did sign a forward, former Sunderland striker Josh Maja, to replace him, effectively to score the goals that Mitro couldn't score in the Premier League in January. Look, Fulham haven't turned into prime Man City, and they won't. I would be very surprised if they play like that in the final 7-8 games of the season. I'm not really worried about Alexander Mitrovic, I'm going to be honest with you. I actually don't mind him as a footballer, but I've got grave doubts whether he's very immobile, slow, isn't the best a finisher. I know who I will be backing if 5 balls drop in the box to Alexander Mitrovic and 5 drop to Callum Wilson. I know who I'm backing to score most of them chances, and it certainly isn't Alexander Mitrovic.
Yeah, me too. John says, what's the score regarding Fernandes? Has he had a fallout with Bruce? Many mags think he's our best defender.
No, I think it's just an injury. He's had some real struggles, to be honest, since he's come back from COVID. He's been weakened by the struggles that he had there. It's something. There'll be medical professionals out there. Apologies if I'm not getting this quite right, but I know it is something that saps players. I've heard managers talk about it. I've heard coaches and sources talk about it as well. The fact that it makes injury more likely. It's drains the muscles, etc. It's all about being tired. And I think Fernandes really struggled. He came back and he's never really been the same since then. He had a little period, and then he's dropped back out because he picked up muscle injuries. He was fit and ready to go last week, but didn't get the nod. The last game, before international break. And unfortunately, he's just picked up a little niggle that these things happen. Andy Carroll, I'm led to believe, is exactly the same. And Ryan Fraser, Steve Bruce said after the game that Ryan Fraser didn't play. He played for Scotland and did really well for Scotland, to be honest, but came back and didn't train the 2 days that he was back because of a slight groin problem. I would expect most of these players to probably come back into contention on Sunday, and it's going to give Steve Bruce some big decisions to make on personnel and some extra options as well. Although I would argue some of the options that I'd like to see on the bench in Matty Longstaff and Elliot Anderson will probably drop out.
Tom Dixon's asking, has he fell out with Clark? A lot of people want to know, has Bruce fallen out with players?
No, I don't think. I think it's an easy one to look at and see he's fallen out with everybody left, right, and centre. But no, they've got a squad there. He's made certain decisions. I think he made some brave calls, being brutally honest, on Sunday. I was one of those people, like many people watching this will feel exactly the same. I was one of those who looked at that team and thought, wow, I don't know what to make of this. I really don't know what to make of this. But look, like I said, the Ritchie call, left wing back, the system worked. The right wing back in Murphy worked. The 2 up front in Gale and Joe Linton worked because it gave them loads of problems, Tottenham. I think the midfield one, like I said, Sean Longstaff really changed things in midfield for me. That worked. Brave decisions. I think one other case you could make is to say, do you look to bring a Joe Willock back into the side because he's somebody who can make an impact? I wasn't sure. That was one of the ones I wasn't sure about him dropping. But if you're going to play the same system, I think the midfield picks itself essentially on that game. And like I said earlier, I think Kraft would be the only one I'd really look to change. And if Wilson's fit to start a game, he has to come in for Dwight Gale.
Yeah, James says, if we lose the arbitration case, does that mean the takeover is over, or can they take the Premier League to court?
I don't look. Just because the arbitration case not working for them, I don't necessarily think that means it's 100% over. But I do think it'll be a good indicator, and I think it'll be less likely that a takeover would go ahead should it fall in favour of the Premier League and not Newcastle United. It does not mean it's dead, though.
Okay, Patrick says, Liam, why was Fraser, Carroll and Fed left out of the squad against Spurs?
I just went over that there, Patrick. Cheers for the question. Ryan Fraser was a slight groin. He didn't train the 2 days before the game when he came back from Scotland duty. Fernandes, like I said, was fit but struggled, picked up a little niggle, and Andy Carroll, I'm led to believe, is exactly the same.
Kenny Trainer, do you think Amanda Stabley and the consortium have told Rafa to hold on to picking his next job? Rafa has said he's been offered jobs, but he's not them back.
Yeah, well, I think one of the conversations that we had was probably Celtic, but that's not the type of job that Benitez would want to walk into at the moment. I know there's been rumours about returns to Serie A, etc. Benitez has got his eyes set on staying in the Premier League, and he is the number one choice. He knows that he's the number one choice to come back at Newcastle United. I think this is the project that he wants to carry on. But he'll not wait forever. He's a man who thrives on working. He's a family man. He loves his family to pieces, but he's not somebody who thrives on sitting around on the couch all day watching football from long distance. He wants to get involved. He wants to be hands-on, a coach to players. And I think it will be interesting to see how things move. West Ham were big massive fans of Benitez, but David Moyes has gone in there and absolutely nailed that club down. Arguably manager of the year this season. Fantastic season they've had, West Ham. Then you would look at Leicester, we're massive fans. I always thought he would end up at Leicester. But again, Brendan Rodgers has gone in there and absolutely nailed that one down. You would maybe look to say, does a Brendan Rodgers end up at an Arsenal, or does a Brendan Rodgers end up somewhere else? You'd have to think. I know Arsenal was the one that, when I worked up in Scotland and Brendan Rodgers was the Celtic manager, a lot of the talk that we used to hear from people in and around that football club was that Arsenal was the job that Brendan Rodgers really had his eyes on. He's been looked at again by Chelsea, but more as a stopgap. It's one of those. I think Benitez will come back into work, and if Newcastle United is available, then yes, he will. But he'll not wait forever. He'll not. He's a type who needs to work, and I think if we're still sitting here in a year's time, Mike Ashley's the owner still of this football club. I think Rafa Benitez will have taken a job somewhere. I just don't believe he sits for a year out of work, because he's made decisions like this before where he'll jump into jobs. They're not always the right decisions for Benitez, to be honest. He went to China, probably wasn't the right call. He'll never admit that, but it probably wasn't. It wouldn't have been the right call to stay in Newcastle either, really, because it was an unworkable situation. But you think maybe could he have taken another job in England, etc. He jumped into the job at Chelsea. It didn't really work out for him. Went into Milan, Real Madrid didn't work out for him. It's his club, etc. You don't blame him for going back there and taking that on, but it didn't work for him. Maybe this time, maybe this is a different Rafa Benitez. I'm just throwing this out there. Maybe this is somebody who's going to sit and take note and really make sure that his next career choice is the right one. And if that is the way Rafa Benitez is thinking at the moment, then that really falls in favour when Newcastle United, because we know he would love to come back here. He'll just never come back under a Mike Ashley-owned football club.
Yeah, I know, saying why is Kraft the only one getting stick for the Spurs goal when as the right-sided player of a back three, he was the only player who got anywhere near an attack from the left. I mean, I've got to be honest, that first goal, I blamed Shelvey for leaving his man and then hauling him down onto the ground when it was too little too late. They were cutting through the centre midfield like a knife through butter for those two goals, I felt. But yeah, I mean, he is right, isn't he? Kraft he's an easy scapegoat because people don't rate him.
Well, he says he's an easy scapegoat, but it's because he's not very good. I don't think
he's not very good, but he's effort. I mean, I'm not going to defend him, right? I'm not going to defend him, but he puts the effort in. He's not very good.
He does. Yeah, he does. You can't never fault the lad's effort. He's got a good attitude. Everything about him's great in that way. But you know, we're not Hartlepool United. We're not playing in the National League here. You know,
hey, they're second.
I know, they're doing really well. Jamie Sterry and Lewis Cass, who's still at Newcastle, actually playing really well for them as well. Yeah, we're not talking about Sunderland in League One, where effort will get you a long way. We're talking about Premier League football here, and he's a man who cost £5 million. I just don't know where the hell that came from, and who they were trying to. Was this a sweetener for an agent or something? But he's the man who keeps surviving. Like I say, I would rather have kept DeAndre Yedlin. DeAndre Yedlin largely wanted to go. But if you could have got rid of Emil Kraft, you would have got rid of him ahead of him any day of the week, because he is arguably, like people said, one of the worst defenders. I don't think he was solely to blame for everything that went wrong on Sunday defensively. I think Paul Dummett on the other side was culpable at times. I think you're right, and Shelvey doesn't screen the back four in the way that he should, makes errors, doesn't track. There are faults in this team, but I would argue that I think if you take an Emil Kraft out of the side and put a better player in, that Newcastle United will probably be a better team for it. And there are better players sitting on the bench who would come in and do a better job.
Yeah, Daniel Woodward says, Dwight Gale, I heard that he might be getting a new contract. Of course, we talked about this last week. We were quite early on with this news last week. In my opinion, that's a Championship striker signing if it gets announced by the club. Yeah, there was a lot of rumours flying around about potential new contracts last week, but nothing really confirmed or announced. Any more developments on that front, Liam?
No, there isn't a massive amount, but we do understand that Dwight Gale will be sorted. Steve Bruce talked about that at the weekend, and I can't criticise the club for getting him tied down to a deal, because he's an asset. Effectively, you can sell him if you want to move him on, or you can keep him if Newcastle United get relegated, or even keep him as a squad player if Newcastle United need that moving forward. The others, I think Andy Carroll will be hard pushed to get a new deal, but I thought that last season and he still did get one. I think Fede Fernandez is one who's been in talks. I think that one might go a little bit longer. Look, I'd love to be proved wrong because I hope he does stay at the football club. I think that one might go a little longer because he's a player at an important age. He's got a good wage, and he'll be looking for a deal that it's probably his last big deal. in football. So I think that'll be an important one for Fernandes. Whether he gets it here or takes one elsewhere is up for debate. But I think Gale's definitely one. I think Sean Longstaff's contract, although he's got another year, needs sorted out. There's a few others like that who have actually got the end of next season. But those are the type of deals that he's done. Somebody's mentioned there, Jacob Murphy. I think Jacob Murphy is a really valuable player to have around. And look, I've not been somebody who's always said that. I've had my doubts about him, but I think what you saw on Sunday is the real quality that he's got. He can run at players. He's got pace. He's not the Jacob Murphy that turned up in Newcastle. Jacob Murphy, who originally signed, I thought looked low on confidence. I think not low on confidence. I think he was overawed by the whole Newcastle United fans signing for Newcastle. I think it knocked him for 6. I just don't think he looked a player with any confidence. But I think he's a lad now who knows he's in last chance saloon. And really, he wants to play for this football club, and you can see that every opportunity he gets now, he comes on and has a big impact. And that's one thing I've been critical of him about, is that I think he's a good player. I think he's decent, but doesn't impact games enough. He's impacting games now when he's been used, coming off the bench, having an impact, starting a game, arguably fighting Joe Linton for man of the match. I can't fault him. He's definitely got to be worth a few more years. And again, it's a Dwight Gale one. Keep him, sell him, because somebody will take him. If you don't want to keep him beyond the summer, because he's young enough, he's got enough quality, that you can make $1 million or $2 million back off him. If you really want to do, if that's what you're minded to do. But
I like Murphy. I think Murphy's really starting to come into his own. He reminds me a little bit of the transition of Ayoze Perez. He's got his confidence, do you know what I mean? But I mean, it's not difficult to look good in a Steve Bruce team, let's be perfectly honest. But, he's shone. He has shone, and for me, I think he could be, as Donald Bain says in the chat, he's the most improved player. Willock, he's expensive, but he's got 2 crucial goals, hasn't he? He's got 2 crucial goals so far. I would say that if we do have a takeover, it could be a move considered for him, depending on who comes in as manager.
I think if Newcastle United stay in the division, I think he'll probably stay here for another year. I think that's probably the way it'll work out. But I think Arsenal are open to offers, and the money won't be there if Newcastle United don't get taken over to sign. Even somebody just to keep your squad the same by signing a Joe Willock permanently. I don't think that'll be on the table for Newcastle United. With a takeover, I like him. I think he's a good player. I think he's got lots of talents. I think he's good. He's a midfielder that Newcastle haven't got. He carries the ball really well. Makes a lot of yards with his ball carrying, can finish, gets on the end of things, makes late runs into the box, ghosts in, and that's invaluable. I haven't really had anybody who makes those kind of runs into the box, in my opinion, since maybe somebody like a Gini Wijnaldum, who used to make those runs and get on the end of things. And I think Willock's got a touch of that about him. But he's playing a bad side, really. And I think he hasn't had a great loan spell so far. But I see some stats doing the round on Sunday, that I think he's got more goals, Premier League goals, than any Arsenal midfielder has this season, and he's 2 in the time he's spent in Newcastle United, which is quite an incredible statistic, really. But I don't think he's in favour there, and I don't think, I've said this when he signed, if he does well at Newcastle United can afford him, then I think he'll end up here. But I suspect the way things are going financially, and if no takeover happens before the end of the summer, I think he'll just stay here on loan, and then again, providing Newcastle United stay in the division.
I did see that rather staged reaction from the Tottenham fan who was covering the game on one of the watchbacks when Willock scored. You'll have seen it. It went viral. I didn't believe that for 1 minute. It says why. Oh yeah, I'll try and find it and send you it. It's bizarre. Why was there no offside check on the Spurs' second goal?
I don't know. I'll be honest, I was up in the boxes at Newcastle. That's where we normally sit. We don't have replays. So I didn't see that. It's just a case of it goes.
I thought you were drinking the mini bar. I thought you were drinking the mini bar in one of the boxes. I didn't see it. I thought you just been perfectly honest there.
I wish it did have the mini bar still in. We do actually get a bottle of water. That's quite nice. But I was just happy to be there. And I feel it. I mentioned it in a piece I wrote a while back that I feel it like you fans out there. I really do, because I've largely been shut out. It's been a case of only one media person per company getting in. So I've only done a couple of games in this time. Only done a couple of press conferences, and it's been really frustrating for me because that's your life, isn't it? Even as a writer, as a fan, you go to football matches. It's what you do. It's what you do on a weekend, and I've been as starved of that as everybody else out there.
Yeah, loads of questions. Keith's on the drink, obviously. He says, I think there'll be massive bids in for Shelby come the end of the season.
You're only saying that, Keith, because he's got the same haircut.
Yeah. Geordie, go on, we'll take it because we were slightly late. I don't mind taking a couple extra questions. Geordie says, what do you think of Rio's comments about fans buying the club?
I'll agree with you, Geordie Sangaster. #idiot. He is. And he's not even... I don't know how some of these people get work. I honestly don't. Because if he made some good points, was intelligent, but he's not. He really isn't. I don't want to be too critical of him. He was a fantastic footballer with a fantastic football brain, but he certainly hasn't got the brain to be an analyst or a pundit. Yeah,
lots of people happy that we're going to continue into next season. It's just good crack. We enjoyed doing it, and the questions you lot give us and the banter in the chat tonight's been absolutely superb. And John is on the ball. There we go. NUFCmatters.com. The cult T-shirts will be available. He says limited edition tonight, so get yourself on if you want to be in the cult. You've got to get your T-shirt. I hope me and Liam are getting a free one. By the way, John, so ping us one over and we'll wear them as your models. But yeah, great stuff as always. Liam, where can people find your stuff?
Just down here at Liam J Kennedy 23 on Twitter. Just give us a follow and check us out. If you like the sort of stuff that I do on here, and the stories that I'm writing, I'm actually off this week, so you won't see much on since Sunday. But if you like the stuff that I do, just give us a follow. And we work on a subscription service. I work for the Shields Gazette, so you guys can just catch us there. It's a couple of quid a month to read the kind of stuff that we write, the analysis, the live match reports, everything that you get and everything that you want, covering Newcastle United, takeover news, anything that might happen or crop up. Just give us a follow and give us a subscribe as well, and if you can afford it and if you like what we do.
Yeah, a lot of people saying 2 hours. I tell you what, we'll aim to do one for the maybe the penultimate game, maybe, or coming up to the last game. Let's do a 2 hour one, Liam, just so we can look ahead and look at maybe look ahead, or do a season review or something like that. Maybe it's at the end of the season because we're both tied with kids, etc. But a lot of people asking for that, and we will continue through the summer. There'll be stuff in the summer. I'll have a chat with Liam. We're gonna look back at memorable games, look at teams, whatever. We'll come up with something. But don't worry, the summer content, like we did last season, will still be there. So we'll come up with something so you get your fix of Liam once a week, and we can continue to plug the stuff that he does at the Shields Gazette. Got to say thanks to Jeff. He's obviously following in Q-Tech's line and John's line from Jab, and he's come up with this tonight. Wonderful. Cardinal Wraith, the leader of the cult. I'm not quite sure what I'm doing with my hands there, but and I'm not quite liking the red and white either. I never wear anything red and white. So, but yeah, Jeff, thanks for that. I thought I would reward your hard work and effort on Twitter with a bigger audience. So there you go. It's good night from Cardinal Wraith and good night from the Honourable Reverend Liam Kennedy.
Follower. All hail.
Till next week.
Attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again, but it's the only way you're ever gonna learn your life.